Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, deeper than music radio. Behind every great song, there's an even greater story. I like to say what's up to everybody listening to us on no more Google Podcasts, but Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and we're now on YouTube. So just look up Marquivas or Deeper Than Music, and you'll find us on YouTube. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest, a fellow creative who gets busy. I mean, this guy, 12 projects, worked with 50 artists from around the globe, who also has a podcast, over 200 episodes. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Anthony Church is here on Deeper Than Music. How you doing, man?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Like I told you, I'm just trying to stay warm during the winter months up here in Ohio, but I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I once lived in, we're talking Southern Illinois, and actually this hand, I had got like frost nip on these three fingers. So even when it's cold, these fingers get cold.
It's crazy.
So, man, how did you start off? Did you know you wanted to be a producer and songwriter? How did that all come together?
Yeah, so I really didn't know until around the time I got out of high school. So this was crazy enough. It's going on 10 years because that was in 2016. So this is like my 10th year of making music coming up here. I really started like after high school, so around July, August of 2016.
Yeah.
And I kind of used my high school years to study music production. So from 2012 all the way until I graduated, I knew I kind of wanted to be involved in that realm because I knew I couldn't really rap for sure. Like I like hip hop, but I'm like, I can't rap. I'm not even going to try it. Bad. I can't really songwrite either that well. And I wasn't really good at rhyming or singing or anything like that. I was even in choir in school and I hated it. I couldn't read music or do any of that stuff. So I kind of leaned into, well, how do I get involved, like making the music? And I studied, different producers and just started watching like tutorials on YouTube. And I remember my parents had the free version of FL Studio on their computer. Like I put it on their computer and I would just mess around with the step sequencer and make terrible patterns. But I didn't like make actual beats at that time. But once I got out of high school, me and my buddy who I graduated with, we ended up deciding to make music together, and he wanted to rap. So I was like, well, I'm going to make beats for you. I'll learn how to make beats and you can rap on them. And we kind of just learned together for the first like year and a half to 2 years. And I made a lot of terrible beats from like 2016 all the way till probably really 2019. It was just kind of trying to get the feel of things, like trying to get the feel of matching different sounds and learning keys and learning what worked together and what didn't. It was nice to have someone to learn with because he was learning songwriting and he was learning how to do, write verses and write hooks and things like that. And we made so many songs. So it was kind of nice to be able to do that. And it showed me how to work with artists too. And from there, I ended up branching out about 3 or 4 years later and expanding my network outward. And like you said, I've worked with around 50 different artists at this point. And it's kind of growing every single day, which is pretty cool. But that was really my start, was around 2016. And that's really where I decided, because I invested in the full version of FL Studio at that time after high school. And I knew from there, once I got it, I was like, I'm going to commit to this because I've put the investment in, so now that means you have to commit to what you're doing. So every single day, I've been putting in the work, trying to get better. And it's been pretty cool to kind of see the progress in, being able to learn how to get better at music. And I definitely think I've come a long way, but I got a long way to go still too. So I'm always going to be a student.
Yeah. No, and it's always learning, man. And I mean, man, like I said, your catalog speaks for itself. And if anybody on this show listen to this man's music, I was just like, man, it's very impressive. And then your output. So you said you studied other producers, man. Who were your teachers? Like, what producers did you study?
Yeah, so obviously it's kind of expanded over the years since my palette for music has expanded. But I'm trying to think back, around that time, a lot of people like Kanye West. Obviously, I was listening to a lot of Kanye early on. I really don't listen to a ton of Kanye nowadays, but definitely growing up, he was an influence as an artist, but as a producer too, because I always felt like he working not just with his own production on his own albums, but just working with like Jay-Z and Common and people like that. Like he was such an influential part of early 2000s and Hitboy, who's another big producer, is still doing his thing. He's someone I studied a lot. I remember senior year of high school, I showed, it was like our English class. We had like a, what do you want to be day? And it was like do a
Yeah.
presentation on what you want to be. So I picked production, like music production, and I showed the class a video of him making I think it was a Nicki Minaj and Beyonce beat. And he like did the full beat breakdown. I was showing this to people and nobody knew what this was or what are you showing us right now? But like I still remember showing that in the class and I was like, yeah, I want to do stuff like this one day. And I was just getting all these crazy looks because they're like, what is this? But Hitboy is someone I've always been a fan of his music and I like how he's evolved his career over the years. Timbaland, another guy that I studied early on, and obviously Timbaland's doing a lot of things now I don't necessarily agree with, which that's another conversation.
Oh yeah, we
But
already know what that is.
yeah, but I will say early on he definitely influenced me, especially since I had his autobiography, which was called Emperor of Sound. I read that book, and I actually
Mm.
learned a lot from his story, and really just like the trials he overcame to be where he was at that time, which I thought was pretty cool. And I read that my senior year. I read that like right before I got into producing music. DJ Dahi, another guy that I've always respected who has a very diverse sound, and he worked with a lot of different artists. Just people like that. Those are some of the names that come to mind as far as like the early days of me wanting to be a producer and kind of understanding what a producer actually was, and that was like a pivotal role in the music making process.
Yeah, and I could speak on back in the day. I remember I was in boot camp, Great Mistakes, Illinois, and somebody was driving. So I was in boot camp in '96, and Pony came on, and I was like, "What is that?" And then the syncopated beats like Timbaland,
Yeah,
changed the face of music. So he's one of the, and like now, yeah, that's another time of a conversation. But his touch on music, yeah, is definitely. And then Kanye, yeah, college. My two favorite Kanye albums are College Dropout and Graduation.
yeah.
Man, so how would you describe the sound in Ohio? Like, what is the sound, and what are you bringing as far as like hip hop?
Yeah, it's very
What your production? We just
yeah,
don't want
for
to limit
sure.
it to hip hop. Yeah,
For sure, for sure. It's very interesting because I felt like Ohio didn't have much of a sound when I was younger. Like when I was,
yeah,
even when I started out, I was 18, 19. I thought there was no talent around here at all. I was just like, everybody's like flaky, there's no talent. And that's why I've started working with people across the country because I didn't really think there was anything around here. But the older I've gotten and the more I've been able to connect with people locally, there's definitely a lot of awesome independent artists and people doing their thing, especially like toward where I'm at. I'm closer to like Canton, Akron area, which
okay,
is the 330 area code. There's a lot of definitely cool artists, not just hip hop, but just singers, songwriters, even some other producers as well. But my favorite artist from Ohio was always Stally, who's from Massillon, Ohio, and he was
okay,
signed to Rick Ross for a little bit. He's now independent, but he's someone I listened to since I was in like 8th grade. And I always thought it was cool that he was from, half an hour from where I live. That's, his hometown and everything. And I don't know. I always think the Ohio sound definitely embodies the Midwest. It's very
yeah,
honest, very gritty, sample based. But it's very blue collar too. It's very much a reflection of the hardworking people that are from this area of the United States. And I feel that way about, Detroit, Chicago, those other big cities as well. I think for Ohio, there isn't really one city that has a distinct identity, I don't think. Like even Cleveland, it kind of bleeds different areas of the Midwest a little bit into it and even maybe some East Coast influence as well.
yeah.
And then there's cities like Columbus and Dayton that have a lot of great artists
Well,
in them
yeah,
as
back in
well.
the day, yeah,
Yeah,
dating Ohio players and
yeah, which
yeah,
is crazy. And like I
yeah,
said, that even extends to nowadays where there's a lot of independent acts and different
yeah,
people coming up now that are still doing their thing. So I think the Ohio sound to me is just very representative of the type of people that are from here. And that's what
hmm
I like the most. And then again, obviously there's so much diversity where there's people doing the Atlanta sound, there's people doing the LA sound or the Houston
hmm
sound, whatever. But for
hmm
me, I think I just love the people that kind of make music surrounded by, where we're from and kind of what it's all about to be from here. As far as myself, I don't know if my sound necessarily reflects that all the time. I kind of like to dip into different sides of it. But it's funny you mentioned that because this isn't in the works right now, but it's something I'm thinking about doing is doing a full album where it has all Ohio artists on it. And it's
Okay.
kind of going to
Okay.
be what I'm describing, which is more of like that sample based style and hopefully that Midwest style. And I want to make it to where the artists are kind of giving that vulnerability, that honesty in the music, but just have it strictly based around this state and kind of what it's all about. Because no one's really done that from this state, well, at least that I know of. And it's
Yeah.
something I kind of want to do. And it's not going to be like, oh, this is the Ohio sound, this is the only thing. It's just going to be my version of it.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Because obviously everybody has their own version of it, but I think that would be cool to do. Kind of do like, what is my version of that sound and that style? So I
Yeah.
think that's just kind of how I view it.
Yeah, because I see, I think of Kid Cudi, I think of
Yeah.
course, Bone, and I want to say it's DJ High Tech.
I'm not sure if High Tech is. Jay Rawls is from Ohio,
Yeah,
though. He's
yeah,
from Columbus, and he
yeah,
actually teaches at Ohio State, which is pretty cool. So I look up to Jay Rawls a lot. He's awesome. John Legend is actually from Ohio, too. He's from Columbus. But there's a lot of
yeah,
different people that are from here. They might not claim to be from here because they
yeah,
obviously got their start elsewhere. Even Kid Cudi, like he's from Shaker Heights in Cleveland, but he
yeah,
really got his start in Brooklyn. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
he didn't really get his start here. A lot of people, even if they're from here, it's hard to get your start here, especially if you're on like that bigger level. Most of them moved elsewhere to kind of pursue their career. But it's still
yeah,
pretty cool to know all those people are from, Ohio. So
yeah.
yeah.
And one thing that I liked about Kid Cudi is his music palette is definitely eclectic. Like,
Yeah. And he's evolved over time too.
Yeah.
A lot.
So, what inspires you to create, to make music?
Yeah, I think just life in general. Life has
Yeah.
kind of always inspired me. And really, it's kind of weird because as a fan of music, I feel like the music inspires me to live life a certain way. And then in turn, life inspires me to create the music that I
Yeah.
make in a certain way. So it's like, what do they say? Art inspires life, life inspires art. It's kind of
Yeah.
that whole notion and kind of
Yeah.
living in it real time. And I think that's how I know that music is really such a big part of my life and what I do on the day to day and why it's so meaningful. I think it's all about taking those experiences, whether they're happy or sad or somewhere in between, and channeling that into the creative work. And I think, the last few years for me has really been finding my sound primarily because I've made a lot of different styles and I can make really almost any style. It's just not necessarily what I would want to make. Like, I don't love making trap beats. I could make a trap beat any day, but
Yeah.
that's not really what I'm into.
Yeah.
I'm more
Yeah.
into stuff that's like going to channel something emotionally, make me think about life a little bit, make me think about, something that happened 10 years ago or a friend I once had or a relationship I was once in or anything like that. Like, I like music that makes me kind of reflect on
Yeah.
life and make me think about the future and all kinds of stuff. So that's kind of what I try to channel now into what I'm creating in some type of way, no matter what the vibe of it is. And
Yeah.
hopefully that could translate to the listener too. Hopefully they can hear it and kind of feel the same way that I felt creating it. That's kind of the overall
Yeah.
goal for me. So
Because you bring up a good point, man. There's music for the moment, and then there's like forever music. I like to describe it as and every time I go into like a spot, if I go to a club or a lounge, like one song that I'm like, damn, this instrumental, this music, this vibe is this disco, but this is still is moving and grooving. Is
yeah,
Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. It's
yeah,
the
classic.
little glasses. I'm like, man, this is like, what did Andre Harrell say? It's champagne music, but
Yeah.
it's timeless, and that's my thing too, man. You got people that make timeless music,
Mhm.
i.e., like Maxwell, Sade. Sade could be gone, come back 10 years later. So no, I like to hear that because there is chasing trends or sounds of the moment, but like you said, man, if it doesn't resonate, if it doesn't, Quincy Jones said this before, if it doesn't give you goosebumps, how's it going to give somebody else goosebumps?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can you walk us through, and as a creative, I know sometimes we get inspired in different moments. Walk us through a scenario, man. How do you start it off? How does that palette or how does that canvas get painted? Like, do you have the melody first, the beat? Can you walk us through your creative process?
Yeah. I'm always melody first. I cannot start with drums or even bass line first for some reason. I know there's producers that can do that and are very talented. I unfortunately am not one of those people. I have to
Yeah.
start with, a piano, a guitar, something that's going to be the driving force of it all. And that to me is where that emotion comes from, is like those initial chord
Yeah.
progressions. Because that's really kind of, for me at least, it's the main part of the song. And it's
Yeah.
what kind of keeps it all together. It's like the glue that kind of keeps it all together. So it's always melody first. And then I usually go with drums or bass line second, and then kind of get like a feel for it. And I might, while I'm making the melody, whether it's a sample or whatever it is, I'm kind of stretching it, time stretching it, and seeing what is the BPM, what are we going to kind of do? Are we going to do something more mid-tempo? Are we
Yeah.
going to slow it down even more? Usually if it's more of like an R&B, like a slow jam, it's going to get slowed down a little bit more. But if it's
Yeah.
boom bap, it's going to get taken to like 90, 95 BPM, somewhere in there. Kind of give somebody a pocket to rap on. But sometimes I'm not even thinking about that. I'm just going with whatever at each step feels right. That's what I'm kind of going toward.
Yeah.
Because most days I'm just making stuff just to make it. I'm not even making anything with an agenda. I'm just
Yeah.
taking something that I feel is cool and trying to flesh it out into a full idea.
Yeah.
So I've gotten in the habit of trying to make one beat a day at least, just to say, I'm putting in that work to get that muscle memory and keep getting better. And,
Yeah.
it's just a practice. It's like going in the gym and just shooting free throws all day. That's kind of what it is. I know people that make, 10 to 20 beats a day. I'm not really that person.
Yeah.
I don't really have it in me to be able to do that. And I think there's
that's a lot of time. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I think that there is power in making 1 to 2 a day, because you're able to put a little bit more effort into those specific 1 or 2 ideas, as opposed to if you're doing 10 or 20, are you really putting your all into every one of those ideas?
Yeah.
Probably not. You know what I mean? So, and to each their own. I would never judge anybody that does that. It's just not for me. So for me, it's like, if I make 1 or 2 a day, I'm cool with that. And when I started out, I was doing 5 a day just to be able to get better. But then I was like, well, I'm to the point now where I can at least slow it down, scale it back a bit, and create with more intention too. It allows me to create with more intention and make things that will actually be used somewhere. If I'm not going to use it, an artist might use it, or I might use it for background music on one of the podcasts or something. I don't know. But it allows me to have more, almost like an inventory of things I can pull from and be able to use, as opposed to just constantly throwing things away, which I used to do a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my fellow friends, shout out to Charles Lampley. One thing he told me was like, especially when he's like, man, don't throw it away. You never know who might like it. Or I have a song or something I did, and then I go back later and be like, damn, okay, if I do this, and this. And then like you said, one thing that I have to do is I'll work the idea until the idea is like, I can't force it. And then I'll just come back and revisit it with fresh ears. But I like how you say, man, with muscle memory until you get better, and then kind of scale it down a bit. 50 artists around the globe, man. Can you tell us some of the artists that you worked with?
Yeah. So it's going to be hard to really remember every single one of them.
Oh, just to give a few shout out. Yeah.
I was going to say, I'll do my best to give some. The artist that I started out with, his name is J Trey. So I worked a lot with him early on. He's not currently making a lot of music because he moved states and he moved in with his girl, and he's kind of got a lot of other stuff going on right now.
Yeah.
But we might make music again one day. The door is kind of always open to that. There's an Oklahoma City artist named Warren Mothershed who I produced a lot of his stuff recently. He's definitely more of like gritty hip hop, not really Southern style hip hop, but just more like honest storytelling, which I love a lot. And then on like the R&B side, I worked with Jay Foster, who is he used to be from Chicago. He lived in Chicago initially. Now he lives out in LA. I produced several songs for him. That's just some of the ones off the top of my head. But mostly in the last couple of years, I've been trying to focus more on doing my own thing with putting out the instrumental albums and the instrumental music overall, working with more producers, and then trying to work with more artists one-on-one, creating full albums for them specifically. So I'll still do the producing thing where, traditionally, like I'll get commissioned to work on something for someone, do like a custom beat or instrumental for someone, and then, they take it, put it out, do that sort of normal thing. But I'm trying to get to the point where I'm trying to build my own brand as an artist as well, and kind of put out my own releases more often. So that's really the step that I'm at now. And it started with those solo releases. And I'd say this year specifically is going to be the biggest year for releasing those collab projects, which is going to be really exciting. And I'm also working on a compilation that's going to have a lot of artists featured on it. I'm actually almost done with that now. I got one more verse to go, and then it's going to be time to get it mixed and mastered and then do the rollout. So I'm excited for that as well. But that's kind of who I've worked with so far. There's a lot more names, but just off the top of my head, those are some of the people I've produced for over the years. And definitely shout out to all those people, because being able to work with kind of a wide array of people allowed me to also get used to working with different types of individuals as well. And I think you learn something new from each interaction you can kind of take and apply to your future endeavors. So it's definitely helped me out a lot.
Yeah. And then we mentioned the podcast. What's the name? I can't remember the name offhand.
So it's called the Proven Knowledge Podcast.
Proven Knowledge Podcast. There we go.
Yeah. And that actually started with Jay Trey, who I mentioned earlier. We started Proven Knowledge as like a brand, kind of an umbrella to release music under.
Yeah.
And the whole idea, if you've ever seen the logo, it's a brain and a heart combined. And the whole idea is combining your logical and emotional sides together. Because everybody always says your heart and your mind are at war with one another. And we were like, well, what if your heart and mind were in unison? Like, you would be living your best life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
as
I like
a creative or as a person overall. How much better would your life be if you weren't always, emotional, logical, at war with each other?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea behind it. And it was like giving people that knowledge to live a better life. And we do that through creating. So that was the idea behind the name. But then the podcast, we did it for a little bit where we didn't really have a central focus. We would talk about sports. We would talk about music. We would talk about lifestyle. We would talk about all kinds of stuff. We did it on YouTube for a little bit. And then around the time of the pandemic, I came up with the idea to kind of shifted over to doing strictly music, because I was like, we're a music brand. We should be focused more on the music side. And I started hitting up some artists that I was connected with about doing like weekly interviews, like remote interviews, kind of like we're doing now. And I had overwhelming response of people that wanted to be on the show. And then from there, I just started consistently every single week talking to an individual and just planning out the show. And this now is the 6th full year of doing the podcast this coming year. So we're about to hit 300 episodes coming up, which is very exciting. And it's been definitely something that's been very beneficial to me, opened a lot of doors for me that I wouldn't have just necessarily had as a producer. And it's something I never would have thought I'd do either. I didn't get into music to be a podcaster or anything. Like, I never would have guessed I'd be able to do that, especially someone that's more introverted. But what I found is that music is the thing that I like talking about the most. So it became easier for me to have those discussions. I think if you put me in a room and told me to small talk with people about like, hey, well, how's your wife doing? Or how's this doing? How's your job? I would be terrible at that. But because I'm talking about music and art and stuff, I could talk all day about that stuff. So it became easier. And it's kind of cool because I've almost expanded now where I'm talking to podcasters, like other creatives, people that are still involved in the music space, but they do different roles. And the whole idea of the show is to show people that you don't always have to be the front man. You don't always have to be the biggest artist in the world. There's so many different roles that we could play where you could be involved in this world and make money and have opportunities and still be very happy with what you're doing. And it's been very, very fulfilling and very cool to be able to do it. And I'm thankful that I've had this many people agree to be on the show so far, because I could stop any day. Like, there's never a guarantee that people will, want to be on the show forever. But I've been blessed to have, like I said, almost 6 years of people reaching out to want to be on the show. So it's been very, very cool, to say the least.
Yeah, it's like it resonates, and music is a universal language, Music, it emotes one of the five senses, A lot of people probably can't remember somebody's birthday, but some people, snap, when that song came out, I wasn't here. And yeah, man. No, that's cool, man. And speaking of the podcast, like what has been one of your biggest takeaways from doing the podcast? Like something that you didn't think that would enlighten you, that is, gave you a better insight.
Yeah. Well, I think I always say that this show is like a form of therapy in a way for me, because I'm obviously a musician myself, going through these issues that a lot of these other people are going through. So they're
Yeah.
telling me their issues in the episode, or like things they had to overcome or challenges they faced. And I'm sitting there listening and I'm like, oh, I've dealt with the same thing. You know, in the back of my mind,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm dealing with the same thing, or I had to go through the same issue. And it's like you realize in those moments that you're not alone. You know what I mean? Like there's somebody else out there. There's hundreds of people
Yeah.
out there, artists just like you, going through those same type of struggles. And I think the biggest thing is it allows you to build almost like a community where you can kind of help each other out through kind of hearing those issues. And then the listeners in turn will also learn a lesson because they'll be able to say the same thing. Like, oh, that person overcame this. Well, I'm at that chapter of my life right now, or my journey, where I'm trying to overcome that and get to that next level. And here's how they did it. Let me see if I can kind of follow that on my own path and see how to do that. So it's really like trying to educate people as well, but I just learned so much myself because I'm talking to all these people. You know, the average listener is probably not going to listen to every single episode of the podcast, obviously. They might just listen to a few episodes, but I get to experience every single one of them. So I'm, you know, hopefully every time I'm taking a little bit from each person and, you know, applying it to my own life. But it's helped me out a lot just to be able to realize that all the struggles I've dealt with and the things I've had to get through, other people are doing that every single day too. And we're all just on the grind, trying to get better, but trying to, you know, kind of improve our situation as people, but as artists as well. So that's really what I've learned the most. And like I said, that's definitely a blessing in disguise because not everybody has that ability to be able to have those moments where they can talk to that many people every single week from all
Oh
over the
yeah.
world.
Yeah. No, that's a beautiful thing, man. And like you said, especially during COVID, we learned that we can still, even though we're on lockdown, we can still connect through other people through technology. And also, don't you have like a woman appreciation type of, is
Oh
it
yeah.
like a,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
coming up actually in March. Every March since 2022, I think is when I started it. And that actually came as a result of the podcast, believe it or not, because I was interviewing a lot of women artists and producers, and they would kind of tell me similar stories about like, you know, the opportunities that they weren't able to get that other people were able to get, you know, dealing with people who didn't necessarily have the best intentions, like working with producers or working with management, kind of getting lowballed all over the place. And I was like, man, women really do have it the hardest in not just, you know, other industries, but also music too.
Oh
And
yeah. Oh yeah.
I was like, how do I kind of make something where I could give back in a way? And so I kind of came up with that because March is Women's History Month. So I was like, well, let me do something in March. It's kind of like a Women's Appreciation Month for music. So we started doing like highlighted artist posts where we would have women, whether they're producers, artists, or anyone involved in the music industry, they would come and they would kind of give like a little testimony about their experiences, what they feel could be done better in the industry overall. And then they get to highlight a charity or an organization that people can donate to, whether it's time or money or whatever, that directly benefits women in music. And I've also been able to highlight some organizations out there that do directly benefit women in music. So this year we're doing artist highlights again. We do the Spotify playlist where
Okay.
every single day in March, 31 days is a different song from a different women artist, which is really cool. And then we're also doing a project this year for Proven Knowledge. It's going to be like an album, and I'm not sure how many songs it's going to be. Right now we have about 5 songs for it. We're still working on it, and I don't know when it's going to be out, but it's going to have different women artists featured, and we're going to be donating a lot of the money to a women's based charity as well. All the streaming revenue is going to be donated over there to that women's based charity. So we're just trying to kind of expand out and figure out different ways to help and different ways to do that. And I'm thinking about also doing like a donation challenge too this year, maybe, and telling people to match the donations for a certain charity that I end up choosing as well. So I just want each year to kind of expand a little bit more, but it's cool to just be able to help out and kind of shed light in a different way on some of these issues that happen
Yeah.
and allow women to kind of be at the forefront and not really, because I think for me it's like I'm not even at the forefront of this. I want them to be at the forefront of this and be able to share their experience and their stories, because obviously I can't relate to this as a man. So I'm like, I want you guys to be able to get out there and share your story more. And we try to do that a little bit through the podcast, but it's just another extension of being able to do that. And hopefully I can keep expanding that every year into something really cool. So that's really what that's all about.
Man, cool, cool. So as always, ladies and gentlemen, and time flies, and we gotta wrap this up. But I got two questions for you. Or no, actually, yeah. The first one is shameless promotion time. Where can people find you, and what do you got going on through into 2026? Now that we're into
Yeah.
2026, what can we look forward to?
Yeah. So I guess primarily social media wise, I would say Instagram's the best place, which is at Anthony Church Music. I pretty much post almost every day over there. So you'll be able to have access to the podcast, see all the music, all the updates, everything. And then primarily the platform to check out is Bandcamp, anthonychurch.bandcamp.com. And I'm going to be putting a lot of my solo work on there. And currently, like I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of collab projects in the works. So I can't really speak on a lot of those, but I do have another solo instrumental album coming out this summer, and that compilation album is almost done. So I'm looking to put out both of those in the second half of the year. But before that, I'll just be steadily releasing music to different streaming platforms and to Bandcamp as well. So I'd say that's the big goals musically for the year. Just staying consistent and seeing that progress kind of unfold is going to be very exciting. But a lot of cool things are on the horizon. So.
Awesome. Last question, man. What does music mean to Anthony Church?
Music definitely means, I would say it means everything, but I think just my life in general means everything. Being alive means everything. Music is just a part of my life. It is such an important part of my life. It's gotten me to a lot of different places, but it's not everything, but it is very important. And I always will say that, without it, I don't know what I would be doing. Who knows where I would be or the trajectory of my life. But I feel like it has launched so many different ways for me to be a better human being. And I am forever grateful for that to be a thing. And I always remain a fan of music, no matter if I'm creating it or not. I hope to always be creating it, but I think I'm always going to be a fan first. And I'm just appreciative of the ability to be involved in music. Like I said, hopefully that happens and continues to happen for a long time. That's the goal, but it means a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen. So, hey, you heard it from Anthony Church. Check out his music. Check out the podcast. And this is Marquivas and Anthony Church signing off on another great episode of Deeper Than Music with Marquivas. Thank you for listening.